My name is Amora Lee. I'm 29, and I've spent most of my adult life designing spaces for other people to look at, but rarely letting anyone look too closely at me. I'm a graphic designer based in Austin. My Instagram sits just above 50,000 followers, filled with carefully lit typography shots, color studies, and branding mock-ups. Nothing personal, no selfies, no weekend brunches, no soft launches, just design. To me, that account isn't social, it's sacred. A visual diary of 6 years of work, my growth, my mistakes, my late night experiments, my world, but curated on my terms. Then there was Evan Blake. He came into my life the way lightning hits dry ground, quick, bright, and impossible to ignore. We met at a friend's rooftop party last year. He was a social media strategist for lifestyle brands, the kind who could turn an oat latte into a viral post. Everyone in the room seemed to orbit him, drawn in by his confidence, his humor, his easy charm. I was standing near the balcony, half listening to a conversation about color psychology and marketing, when he appeared beside me. "Designers," he said, raising his glass. "You're the ones who make people feel something before they even read the words." It wasn't just a compliment, it was observation. Sharp, almost intimate. We talked until the lights blurred into dawn. For months, being with Evan felt like living inside a cinematic montage. Morning coffees, spontaneous drives, rooftop dinners, where he'd pull out his phone to capture the golden moment. I tried not to mind. It was part of who he was, his way of connecting with the world. Until the night he asked me for my password. We were having dinner, quiet, cozy, candles flickering between our plates. I had just shown him a new client mock-up I'd been proud of. He leaned across the table, smiling, and said, "If you loved me, you'd share your password." I laughed. I thought he was joking. He wasn't. He said it again, softer this time, like it was a test. "Amora, I don't mean to pry, but if we're serious, why the secrecy? Why can't I post something for us?" I told him the truth, because that account is work. It's not about us. It's not about anyone but design. He frowned, almost pitying. "You act like privacy makes you pure. But online, if it's not visible, it's not real." That line landed hard. Something inside me recoiled, not just from the words, but from what they meant. He didn't just want access, he wanted ownership. Over the next few weeks, it became a recurring theme. He'd tease me about never tagging him in photos. "You post your favorite fonts, but not your favorite person?" He'd joke, then half smile, half frown, waiting for me to fix it. I'd laugh it off, trying to change the subject. But the air between us changed. His humor turned pointed. The teasing became tension. When I explained that keeping my private life offline was how I stayed balanced, he said I was emotionally distant, that I was using minimalism as a shield, that maybe I didn't trust him enough to be seen with him. He started checking when I was active online. If I liked someone's post at 2 a.m., I'd wake up to texts. "Who's that? Why are you awake?" I told myself it was insecurity, temporary, fixable, but something about the way he monitored me, tracked me, documented me, started to feel less like love and more like surveillance. One night he reached for my phone while I was rinsing dishes. "I just want to see what filters you use," he said. I froze. My instinct was to snatch it back, but I stopped myself. He laughed at my hesitation. "Relax, I'm not hacking NASA." Still, my heart was pounding. Something was shifting, small, invisible, but irreversible. That weekend, we spent the day downtown. Vintage shops, bookstores, a food truck lunch where he insisted we take photos of everything before eating. It should have been perfect. That night, as we walked back to the car, he said, almost casually, "Every time you post your art, but not me, it feels like I'm your secret." I stopped walking. "You're not my secret, Evan. You're just mine. There's a difference." He sighed like I'd said something naive. "You think boundaries make you safe," he said, "but they just make you invisible." The rest of the drive was silent. When I dropped him off, he didn't kiss me goodbye, just said, "I'll talk to you when you're ready to let me in." He didn't text for 3 days. When he finally did, the message was short. "Dinner tomorrow? Let's reset." I wanted to believe him. I wanted peace. But something in my stomach twisted when I read it. The same instinct that had whispered, "Don't share your password," and I ignored it. Because when you love someone who makes the world look exciting, it's easy to think your boundaries are the problem, not their behavior. I wish I'd listened to that voice. Because the next time I let him touch my account, Everything I'd built started to unravel. When Evan texted, "Dinner tomorrow? Let's reset," I exhaled like I'd been holding my breath for days. I wanted to believe he meant it, that he'd finally understood I wasn't hiding him, just trying to protect something fragile. We cooked at my apartment that night. I made pasta. He opened a bottle of white wine and talked about his new campaign for a local wellness brand. He was radiant when he talked about numbers, engagement rates, conversion spikes, viral growth. To him, visibility was life itself. Then, between stirring sauce and refilling glasses, he said it. Again, casually, almost playful. "Maybe I could help manage your Instagram a bit, just once in a while. Schedule posts, respond to comments, make it easier for you." I hesitated, remembering the last time he'd asked. He noticed. His voice softened. "Amora, come on. I'm not trying to invade your privacy. You work so hard, and I'm literally paid to optimize engagement. Just let me help you. One post, that's all." He said it with such sincerity that I let myself believe it, so I agreed. I gave him temporary access. A few hours, one post. I told him exactly what he could do. He smiled like it was a promise between us. When he left that night, he kissed my forehead and said, "You'll thank me when you wake up." I didn't sleep well. I woke up to dozens of notifications. Texts, DMs, missed calls. At first, I thought something had gone wrong with a client campaign. Then I saw the messages. "What's with your bio? Did you just soft launch your boyfriend? Girl, this feels off." My hands trembled as I opened Instagram. My bio had been changed to "Taken by Evan Blake, #PowerCoupleGoals." A photo of me at my desk, one I never remembered being taken, was pinned to the top of my feed. The caption read, "She hides love behind design. I'm just helping her show it." There was a reel too, a montage of private, unguarded moments. Me sketching on the couch in an oversized sweater, making coffee, sleeping under morning light. I never posed for those. He had taken them secretly. The audio was a trending sound. "She's mine now." And within hours, it had hit 500,000 views. The comments were split right down the middle. "Aw, he loves you so much." "This is weirdly invasive." "Consent? Hello?" "Queen energy. Show her off." It felt like the entire internet was dissecting my relationship, my privacy, like it was a public exhibit. I called Evan immediately. He answered with that bright, proud tone that made me sick now. "Did you see it? It's blowing up. You're trending, babe." "Evan," I whispered, "you had no right to post that." He laughed. "Come on. It's literally the sweetest thing I've ever done. You said you wanted people to see the real you. Now they can." My chest tightened. The real me doesn't exist for content. He went silent for a beat. Then his voice hardened. "Why do you always turn everything into an attack? You're acting like I committed a crime." I said quietly, "You violated my trust." And that's when his tone changed completely. "You're controlling," he said flatly. "You twist everything until you're the victim. You can't even let someone love you publicly without calling it manipulation." I felt dizzy. He kept talking, fast, defensive, practiced, using words I'd seen recycled from influencer therapy reels: emotional withholding, gaslighting, coercive control. He was turning language into weapons. By the end of the call, he hung up on me. The silence afterward was deafening. He didn't come by the next day, didn't call, didn't text. But when I looked at my kitchen counter the next morning, his iPad was still there, forgotten, glowing faintly beside the coffee maker. I wasn't trying to snoop. I just wanted to revoke his access from my account. But when I opened the settings, I saw the Notes app already open. And that's when everything stopped. There were dozens of drafts, all written by Evan. Captions like, "Surviving digital neglect, my story." He hid me for months, never again. When emotional minimalism becomes abuse. All time-stamped before our fight. He had written breakup posts that hadn't happened yet, each one formatted like a campaign. Hashtags, posting times, emotional hooks. It wasn't venting, it was planning. My stomach twisted. He had been scripting the narrative of our downfall while I was still believing in the relationship. I scrolled through line after line until my vision blurred. I took screenshots, instinctively, without knowing why. I texted him, "Your iPad's here. You can pick it up whenever." He showed up the next morning. No eye contact, no apology, just grabbed it from my outstretched hand and walked out. For a moment, I thought that was the end, the quiet, painful end of something that had gone sour. But I was wrong. He hadn't just stolen my privacy. He'd stolen my story. And soon he was going to tell it to the entire internet. At first, I tried to disappear. I muted his stories, stopped checking comments, deleted the reel he posted from my account. I told myself it would fade in a week or two, the way trends always do. But then the messages started again. This time, not from him, from strangers. Wow, I can't believe you did that to him. You really gaslit a good guy like Evan? You deserve to be called out. My hands shook as I opened TikTok. Evan had posted a video, eyes red, voice trembling, soft piano music playing behind him. The caption: "When you love someone who hides you, it starts to feel like you don't exist." He didn't mention my name. He didn't need to. Anyone who followed both of us knew. The comments filled instantly. "You're better off without her. Men deserve to feel seen too. She sounds emotionally abusive." 500,000 views in 2 days. The next morning, I found screenshots of our private texts on his story, cropped and captioned out of context. A message where I'd written, "I need space tonight," was labeled "classic emotional withholding." Another one, "I'm not comfortable with that," had been tagged "signs of control." He had turned boundaries into evidence. And just like that, I was the villain of a story I hadn't even known was being written. The fallout was instant. A brand I'd been working with for months sent me a curt email. "We're going in another direction." 2 clients quietly pulled out of contracts. My DMs became unrecognizable, a blur of accusations, armchair psychology, and strangers demanding I take accountability. My sister June called every night. She's a therapist, and she sounded angrier than I'd ever heard her. "Amora, what he's doing is defamation. It's psychological warfare, not heartbreak." I wanted to believe that, but all I could feel was humiliation. Every part of my life, my art, my words, my silence, was being interpreted, reframed, and repackaged for clicks. I thought about posting my side, about showing screenshots, proof, context, but something stopped me. I knew he'd spin that too. He'd post crying again, say I was attacking him, and the internet would eat it up. So I stayed quiet, until one afternoon my coworker Noah sent me a message. "Hey, you need to see this. Someone sent it to me anonymously." It was a private TikTok, unlisted, untagged, like it was never meant to be public. The account belonged to Tessa Miller, one of Evan's influencer friends, and his ex-girlfriend. The video was filmed in what looked like a coffee shop. Evan sat across from her, laughing. You could hear the espresso machine in the background. Tessa said, "You're really going to frame her like that?" And Evan, smiling wide, replied, "Watch. I'll say she's emotionally distant. That kind of story always blows up. People love seeing women get called out for being cold. It gets sympathy engagement every time." He laughed. She laughed. They weren't talking about healing. They were talking about metrics. I watched the clip 5 times before realizing my hands were shaking. This wasn't a messy breakup. It wasn't even a misunderstanding. It was premeditated, a campaign. Every fight, every tear, every word he'd thrown at me. Carefully chosen content. I opened the folder on my desktop labeled Proof. Inside were the screenshots from his iPad, draft captions, timelines, hashtags. I added the new video, renamed the folder Evidence, and sent it to June. She called within the hour. "Amora, I know someone at a digital ethics agency," she said. "They handle cases exactly like this. Don't post, don't react, just document everything." It took me 2 days to gather it all. Messages, timestamps, before and after edits of his stories. The agency verified every piece, cross-checking creation dates and metadata. When I saw their report, my breath caught in my throat. The earliest breakup narrative draft in Evan's Notes app was dated 5 weeks before our first major fight. He had planned his victim arc before the conflict even existed. I realized then that I had never been a partner. I'd been a plotline. The agency promised to act discreetly. They would release an anonymized case study on weaponized empathy in influencer culture. No names, just patterns. I wanted to feel relieved. Instead, I felt hollow, like every version of me that had existed online had already been rewritten by him. And yet, for the first time in months, I felt something else creeping in. Not rage, not revenge, clarity. He wanted a spectacle. I was done giving him one. The agency called me a week later. Their lead investigator, a calm woman named Dr. Hahn, spoke with the kind of precision that made everything sound procedural, almost antiseptic. "We've confirmed the metadata," she said. "Everything you sent checks out. The timeline shows he fabricated a narrative well before the actual events. That's premeditated defamation. I sat in silence, fingers tracing the rim of my coffee mug. Part of me wanted them to tell me to sue him. Part of me just wanted to disappear. Instead, they asked if I'd be willing to let them include my story, anonymized, in a public ethics report about social media manipulation. They said it could shift industry conversation. It sounded abstract, detached, but I agreed. A month later, the report was published under the title, When Awareness Becomes Ammunition, the Monetization of Victimhood in Influencer Culture. It didn't name him, it didn't name me, but everyone who'd followed the drama knew exactly who it was about. They used screenshots from the iPad drafts, examples of his cropped texts, quotes from his staged videos, commentary from digital psychologists, ethics experts discussing strategic self-victimization. And in the background of it all, there was me, the anonymous designer who'd been transformed into a character without consent. The internet reacted differently this time. Brand managers began quietly untagging him. A few marketing blogs covered the case using words like manufactured empathy and parasocial manipulation. A journalist from TechScope tweeted, "Fascinating how easily performance and abuse blur online." No hashtags, just quiet curiosity. Then, without warning, Evan posted one last TikTok. No tears, no piano. Just him, eyes hollow, voice subdued. "Sometimes people use your pain for their own agenda," he said. "I'm stepping away from toxic spaces for a while." The irony was unbearable. Comments poured in, some supportive, others skeptical. But within days, his engagement plummeted. The algorithm moved on. The followers he'd built on outrage drifted away to the next scandal. And just like that, the noise stopped. For the first time in months, I woke up without dread in my chest. No new DMs, no trending tags, just silence. Real restorative silence. I didn't celebrate. I didn't post a thing. I just deleted my Instagram app and took my first walk in weeks without headphones. When I got home, June was waiting for me. She smiled when she saw my face. "You look lighter," she said. "I'm learning," I replied. "Learning what?" "That silence isn't the absence of power, it's the proof of it." She nodded, understanding more than I could say. 3 weeks later, Dr. Han emailed again. The agency wanted help designing the visual identity for a new project, a documentary series about influencer accountability and content ethics. They called it Behind the Filters. They said they needed someone who understood the visual language of social media, but also the emotional weight of being exploited by it. I said yes. Working there was strange at first, like healing by dissecting the weapon that once cut you, but I found comfort in the quiet professionalism of it all. No hashtags, no filters, no curated outrage. Just people trying to understand how digital empathy could turn into digital violence. Each day I designed storyboards, crafted titles, and reviewed interviews with psychologists and survivors. Their stories blurred together, women accused of manipulation, men edited into villains, lives ruined in the span of a trending week. It wasn't about revenge anymore, it was about recognition. One night, after everyone left the office, I stared at a rough cut of episode 3, the one titled Weaponized Transparency. A line from the narrator echoed through the speakers. When truth becomes performance, consent becomes collateral. I pressed pause. My reflection looked back at me through the black screen, steady, unrecognizable from the woman who once flinched at every notification. I didn't know that the next chapter of this story was already walking toward me, in a navy blazer, holding a leather portfolio, ready to rebuild his brand in the same building where I'd rebuilt my piece. But that would come later. For now, all I felt was quiet, and the strange, steady certainty that justice sometimes wears the face of stillness. The morning started like any other. I was setting up color palettes for the episode 3 mock-ups, soft neutrals, muted tones, deliberate calm, when Dr. Han walked by and said, "Amora, our guest consultant for this afternoon has just confirmed. He'll be helping us frame the rehabilitation narrative." I didn't think much of it. The agency often invited brand experts or former influencers to discuss ethical storytelling. I was more focused on kerning fonts than on who that consultant might be. By 3 p.m., the conference room was filled with storyboards, half-empty coffee cups, and the low hum of a projector. I was aligning the final slide when the door opened. He walked in. Evan Blake. Shorter hair, darker suit, still wearing that easy confidence like armor. He looked professional, repackaged, polished, restored. His portfolio tucked neatly under his arm, the same faint cologne trailing behind him. For a second, the air left the room. He froze mid-step. Recognition flickered. Shock, guilt, and something that almost looked like fear. "Amora," he said, his voice a cracked whisper, then quieter. "I didn't know you worked here." I didn't move. My heartbeat was loud but steady. Months ago, that voice could unravel me. Now, it was just background noise. Dr. Hahn's eyes darted between us, sensing the tension but saying nothing. The silence stretched. I gathered my sketches, placed them into a neat stack, and finally looked at him. "Don't worry, Evan," I said softly. "This time, the story's about consent." His jaw clenched. He started to say something, but I was already walking out. Behind me, I could feel every head turn, confusion giving way to realization as the pieces connected. The door closed with a quiet click. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. For the first time, I felt absolutely calm. That evening, the agency called. Dr. Hahn's tone was tight but controlled. "Amora, I'm so sorry. He applied under a pseudonym. We had no idea. His contract has been terminated, effective immediately." I thanked her and said it was okay, because it was. 2 months later, the documentary series launched. The third episode, Weaponized Narratives, became the breakout hit. They never used names. No one said Evan or Amora. But everyone who'd lived through that online spectacle recognized the pattern, the language, the timeline. It spread again, but this time, differently. Quietly. Intellectually, thoughtfully. Articles appeared about the ethics of empathy, about how easily storytelling can become manipulation. Somewhere out there, Evan tried to post a statement about growth and accountability, but the internet has a long memory. Within hours, his comments filled with links to the documentary. He deleted it by morning. I didn't feel vindicated. No satisfaction, no gloating, just stillness, like I'd been holding my breath for months and had finally exhaled. I started seeing someone new, Rowan, a 32-year-old environmental lawyer. He has 40-something followers and a private Instagram full of trees and trail photos. No filters, no curated captions, just life, unperformed. We've gone on 5 dates. There are no photos. He prefers it that way. So do I. One evening, we watched the sun dip over Ladybird Lake, the city humming below. He turned to me and said, "You ever think about posting sunsets like this?" I smiled. Not everything needs an audience. He nodded, and for a moment, the quiet between us felt like home. Evan once told me I was afraid of being seen. He was wrong. I just refused to be filtered, cropped and captioned until I was someone else's version of me. Being known is not about exposure, it's about truth, the kind that doesn't need to trend to exist. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need the algorithm to prove my innocence. I just needed time for reality to catch up to what had already been true. Sometimes justice doesn't look like a victory. It looks like peace. And sometimes the silence that follows isn't emptiness. It's freedom.